right, here we are today with a 1978 Chevy Corvette. One of our friends just bought this car, paid what, $8,000 in change for it, which you can pick these up under 10K. It needs a little bit of love. This is going to be kind of a before video. We'll as it progresses and as we do some stuff to it and help them out with stuff, we'll take more videos of it over time and then talk to you about what we're working on. So it's been pretty well taken care of over the years. Definitely a car that, you know, now is 30-40 years old and needs some things. It's been well kept and generally garage kept, so the paint's still pretty nice. Got a little bit of the crow's foot, you know, and kind of some of the fiberglass things that you see with older Corvettes. Certainly could be repainted, but you know, in all, for under $10,000, it has just an awesome cool factor, and it's just so cool looking. And it sounds great. It's a V8. I think this is very much a compliance Corvette. These only made like 185 or 200 horsepower. They're not really a fast car, but you can do a lot of work to them with everything to get them up to speed, so to speak. We have the super late 70s, early 80s white interior. It comes with a free dusting of cocaine, and we'll take it for a spin here. One thing to watch for in these Corvettes when you look for them is to look right here. This bird cage, the metal underneath all the fiberglass that makes these cars up, can rust. And if you see a lot of corrosion, you know, on the insides of your doors, around the windshield pillar and everything else, that's a big sign to walk away from one of these. So get the key in, get the door shut. Nice American iron sound to that door, and here we are. This isn't automatic. The bulk of these Corvettes were actually automatics. That was kind of the thing at the time. Power windows, tape deck, although this is not original. This is a retrofit, a Panasonic retrofit that's in there. Decent suite of gauges, headlights, tail lights, steering wheel. I would mention the car definitely needs new tires. That's something that is on the list for the owner to purchase, and also do an alignment, kind of address some of the suspension stuff. But a little later we'll take it back to our shop and we'll put it up on the lift. We haven't had a chance to get it up on a lift yet and really look at it underneath since it was purchased. And I've got a feeling you're going to see more videos of us tinkering with it between now and then. So 3-speed autos in these. This motor is still carbureted, and we'll see if we can get out of here. The first thing to get used to in one of these is the long driving position, the very long hood ahead of you. You know, in modern cars, you're much more in the middle of the car. These, you're very much in the back of the car in terms of where you sit in the vehicle. So I know we've talked about an exhaust leak. The owner's got a set of headers on his Christmas list, but we'll get going a little bit. And actually, we'll probably roll up the windows, which, believe it or not, it's, nope, maybe, well.
Yeah, you might want to pop that door open.
Pop the door open. Oh, with the T-tops on.
Roll the window.
Okay. Yeah. This is a frameless window, and so I guess from a modern driving sense, you know, when you open a door on an old car, it auto indexes, and on one of these, it's not going to do that. So I know, like, our Camaro is frameless, for example.
Chandlers and Camaros.
Yep, BRZs, the whole long list. So, but a pretty comfortable driving position overall, pretty easy to live with. Very comfortable seat. Not a car that I'd ever consider to be particularly fast, but you're certainly going to get a lot of looks cruising around in it, and it's very comfortable, very easy to drive. So, you know, does everything that you kind of expect a car to do. And on a nice sunny day like today in June, July, August, this is a really cool car to get seen in. We did put the T-tops on the car to drive it right now, and that's largely because the wind noise factor you get would just be a lot with the camera. So we've decided to leave the T-tops on. We'll probably pop them off at some point, so you can see that. They do have a bit of a habit of leaking sometimes, particularly if you store these cars outside. A lot of these vehicles have elderly seals around the doors, and that's something that you need to lubricate and make sure that the seals are in good shape. Otherwise, they'll never be watertight. So, taking it over a few bumps. Overall, pretty comfortable, pretty easy, no complaints. little bit of get up and go. So we'll have to find someone with an NA Miata, and we will do a drag race.
I should have never sold one.
you sold your NV, and now we're back to having V8 cool stuff. But I have a feeling that an NV Miata, maybe one of the 6-speed cars, might give this thing a run for its money. So
185 horse.
185 horsepower, and this is a lot heavier than a Miata, although still relatively light by modern standards.
It has the L48 engine, so that's 185.
185 horsepower?
L88, which had 220, and it had the dual intakes. That's how it got to the 220.
Ooh, nice Camaro. My team?
Our team.
Our team. Yes, that's right. Chevy, Team Chevy. Giving me flashbacks to my days at Chevy Racing. But yeah, it does everything you expect it to. It's not a high performance machine, but pretty easy to drive, fun to scoot around in. The white interior, this is something we're gonna work on. We might do a little video. Oyster, excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah, we found that out the other night. Oyster and dark blue exterior.
Oyster and dark blue. I love that when the color was just dark blue,
yeah.
Right? Now it's, you're in Dodge World a lot, so it's very much, hell raisin or cinnamon stick or,
Your sister didn't believe me for the longest time, and my buddy brought over the Corvette books in the collector's edition that he got me, and yeah, dark blue.
All right. But you can, it's got good turn in. It grips the corners well. It's predictable. You can get some good hustle on. Turns a lot of revs for its speed. We're turning like 2,500 RPMs at 60. And that's something to mention that, that 3-speed auto, that third gear is only going to take you so far. And I'm sure that people who do things like drag race and everything else probably do a little bit of gearing work on these cars, do transmission work. Although, as I understand, the transmissions are pretty stout, right?
I think they're truck transmissions. Right?
So they're, you'd have a hard time breaking one of these transmissions. But
this thing had so many fuel economy things for it, though, like
smog pump, all the emissions, and it really choked them to death.
Rear axle ratio is pretty low.
If you would have jumped a few years prior, this car probably would have made double the horsepower.
Yeah, I think 1974, I think
72, 34, somewhere in there.
54 big block, the last option.
Right. Saw a few of those down at the Dream Cruise recently, and man, you want to talk about a car that sounds awesome just with a set of side pipes on it.
I knew nothing about Corvettes until a week ago.
So now we're learning. I worked for Chevy, so I had to know about Corvettes. Would you care to? Do you know what year they didn't build a Corvette?
No.
1983.
Really?
No 1983 Corvettes. They switched from this body style to the C4. They skipped a model year. One ran long, the other ran early.
Somebody in product planning really messed that one up.
Yeah. Someone we're probably related to. So hey, speaking of my team, nice.
Did you see the new thing on Donut Media with the S2000s? I think I sent it to you today.
No, I have not. But I'll have to go take a look.
They're making these little mini S2000s that look really cool. For some reason, only them.
Well, we'll loop around here. They're doing all this work here. They're getting rid of our dam. They're eliminating our dam. So the backstory here is that, and again, very long front end. You got to get used to that in a parking spot. I guess we're in reverse now. But way back in the day, this little mill pond here, Henry Ford hired a supplier, and there was a mill here that pulled power from the little dam. Well, that was in like the 1910s, and here we are 100 years later, and that dam holding up that pond wasn't exactly in the greatest of shape. So a couple $1 million later, we're getting a new dam. They're getting rid of that dam. They're definitely doing. Ooh, there's some skid plate. Some Mark IV Volkswagens died on that. There's a lot of oil. Look at the oil trail. So note to self, if you're in a low car, do not full send over that that little intersection there. So this is very much a car though that you're not going to drive it every day. It's going to be something cool you've got in the garage, cool you've got in your collection. You're going to tinker with it. Parts are relatively cheap.
Relatively, yeah. Exhaust and everything's under $1,000. Headers, that's for full headers.
Full headers all the way back is not less than $1,000. Yeah, that's pretty wild. You can jump to, you know, even in S2000 land, an exhaust, just a catback can easily be $1,200. So these are relatively cheap. They're in the Chevy parts bin, right? So a lot of the parts that are on these you can easily source at Napa or AutoZone or O'Reilly, whatever your preferred vendor of auto parts is, and that makes life super easy. I
think part of the suspension is from a truck leaf spring.
Correct. Yeah, across the back, and that carried through I think the C5 or 6, if I remember right, where you could get underneath and see that transverse spring across the back.
It feels pretty good. I've never been in a car that had that kind of suspension.
Yeah, you know, Corvettes are very evolutionary. I try to tell people that. So I always tell folks, if you're going to buy one, buy the best condition, newest one you can for your budget. Because every year, you know, every generation, they make progressive improvements to the cars. And even the difference between the early C5s, you know, in 1997, and then the later C5s, when you get to like the C5 Z06 in 2003-04, they are just totally different animals, you know, in terms of how they drive, their dynamics, the parts that go into them. You know, GM has a habit of ironing out things over time, and the Corvette's very evolutionary, considering they've been building it since the mid-50s. So I would also recommend, if you ever get the chance, go down to the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green. They've rebuilt it since they had their sinkhole catastrophe a few years back. And they've got a very large track there. You can do factory tours. It's super cool. It's very Americana. It's right off the highway. If you're ever driving through, take the hour or two to stop, check it out. A lot of GM donates a lot of stuff to them, you know, old manuals, blueprints, plans, stuff that now is 20, 30 years old. But it's really cool to go there and sort of see the evolution of these as cars. So we'll come back into the braking zone here for Dead Man's Curve. We got an S4 ahead of us. I don't know. You think he's going to take us? Does he know we're racing? So he's definitely not racing. He is not utilizing that all-wheel drive around this corner at all. Also way too early into that for him. But we're going to let it go. It's all right. He darkened his taillights so you can't see them as well, which I still think is, I don't know what your opinion on this is. I think it's actually the stupidest thing you can do to your car. It's
like that?
Having nearly died in a rear end collision from someone who was not paying attention, I don't think that making your taillights darker in the age of cell phone and distractions is the wisest of decisions.
I've done a lot of stupid stuff on cars. I can proudly say I've never done that.
Yeah, same. It's like I've done some dumb things. I actually put a motor from one of these in a friend's Monte Carlo SS from the early 80s in high school. And the funny part about the story is we had the car, the Monte Carlo, we were pulling the old leaking crappy motor out of it, and we forgot a flywheel bolt, and we were jacking the whole car up on one flywheel bolt off the front of the... It's a lot of swearing and people yelling at each other. But, you know, the other thing I'll say, it stops good. It's got good brakes on it. And I don't know if, you said I think a brake line had been replaced on it?
All new lines, pads, and rotors within the past, like, 2 years.
Bang off shifts here. It makes good power, easy.
It feels fast. It feels like you're going faster than you really are.
And I think, you know, cool. It's the wind noise, it's the driving position, it's the relatively loose steering, you know. It has that cool old car feel. It smells like an old car inside, a little bit of that, you know, kind of garage scent to it, and it's got a lot of charm to it.
I'm glad you're filming like that, because one of the coolest things was sitting in it and seeing how big the fenders really are.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me almost of the Camaro. If you sit in my Camaro, you know, it's got a real tall driving position. You're real low in the bathtub. The BRZ has a little bit of this too. Some of the more modern coupes, the Porsches, your seating position's a little further forward, so you don't really get the fenders. You're not sitting as low in those, though they do have great driving position for driving. But this has definitely got a charm to it, and I could say if you had, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 burning a hole in your pocket and you wanted something cool and vintage that maybe your parents would have driven, your grandparents would have driven, this is a really neat car. It's got a lot of fun factor to it. It scoots around a corner. You can kind of step into the throttle around a corner and get it up to speed. Easy to drive, fun car to drive.
Limited slip diff still feels like it's working pretty well too.
Yeah, you're definitely down on tire, but in terms of its overall feel, it feels really good, you know, dynamically. And these cars were raced. It is worth mentioning that, you know, in the world of like A production, B production, there was a lot of cars out there in the 60s, 70s, 80s that were raced, you know, as race cars, and this is one of them. So. You also have the clear T-tops for these too, don't you?
Yeah, the clear ones. One of them has a crack in it.
They're very common.
Good,
yeah,
yeah, the way I was looking at the top, it seems like the glass wouldn't be too hard to replace on it.
Yeah.
The glass looks like it lays in the middle of it, and it's sealed off, but it's smaller and it lays in it.
Gotcha. And these have a few common problem spots. So if you are looking for one, it is helpful to know from a perspective. I mentioned birdcage rust, you know, that's all the stuff, the windshield frame, all that stuff in these are structural because they're fiberglass clad cars. They're not a traditional unibody car. Frames do rust on them. They are older. The older the C3s have frames. I think the C4s might too. I'd have to look. And I should mention, you know, we're talking to a car related audience, but when we say C1, C2, C3, those are the Corvette generations, and right now we're on the C8 Corvette. That is the mid-engine, the first of its kind mid-engine Corvette. So, hey, there we go. A Holden badged Chevy SS, also on our team. But yeah, this is an easy driving experience, and you bought this largely for your significant other to drive around because it's an auto and it's easy to drive, and she loves it.
She absolutely loves it.
Which is just great.
I never would have guessed either. It's gotta have been because of your dad's Corvette.
Yeah.
Corvettes.
I should mention that too. You know, my dad had a 1967 Corvette, a big block car when I was growing up, and I can tell all of our viewers safely that if you are a child and your dad has a big block Corvette, the sound of that Corvette opening the secondaries will absolutely never leave your soul. You will be into cars and sucked into this universe for the rest of your life, absolutely mercilessly. Randomly, so my dad sold that car in the late 90s to my uncle, who then sold it to another guy that worked at the GM Proving Grounds in Michigan here. And amazingly, that car still floats around. Once in a while, I will see it out on the road. So we'll duck off here and do a little outro. And then we're gonna put the windows down because it is hot in here.
You'll notice the heat going.
All right. And you got the little latch here to pull that loose. It locks the steering column. This is a very secure...
a standard alarm on this car.
A factory alarm.
Factory alarm.
Yeah, and you do have a little bit of space in the back. You're not putting any people back there, but this is the factory strap. You've got some...
Car stuff.
Flags.
Batteries behind you, and then another storage box in here.
Yeah, and you just did new speakers in it.
Yep.
So those look good. We didn't do a radio test. I love you got the faded Corvette logos all over. Somebody like stuck these on.
The Bluetooth adapter.
The tape deck Bluetooth adapter. God, we are in the future now, aren't we? It's amazing. So, I love this though. I mean, what a great design aesthetic. It's such a cool looking car. You know, it's got awesome presence to go just drive it around, and people are always looking at you. And I've always, having had a Corvette myself, I can tell you, like, you can kind of behave like a jerk in one and people sort of are very comfortable with it. It's not like your world of the Chargers and Scat Packs where everyone just seems to end up in prison the second they get in one. People sort of are like, Corvettes are cool and you're allowed to do cool stuff in them, and I always appreciate that. But we'll take it back to the shop. We'll put it up on the lift. Maybe we'll do a little work, see if we can't get one of the wheels shined up. and maybe make a little project out of it and have a little fun with it. So really appreciate everybody tuning in. If you have questions or curious about the cars or whatever else, I'll maybe try to find a buyer's guide for one of these and drop it in the comments if you go out looking for one. But the biggest things to watch for are rust, and then also a lot of vacuum controlled things on these cars. Part of the emissions thing, they make a lot of vacuum. You got to make sure your headlights go up and down, and that all the electronics work and your windshield wipers work and stuff like that. But otherwise, you're really just looking for something pretty well kept. And you know, price wise, they go anywhere from about $5,000 as parts cars up to about $30,000, $40,000 for vehicles that would be like a, you know, Corvette restoration type vehicle or a museum piece. So appreciate you tuning in. If you've got any questions, let us know. Thanks for liking and subscribing here at Just Car People Things.